Next we come to geography in GS1. Geography was never my strong point. I did the basic minimum. I just did the 11th and 12th NCRTs mainly for it. Sometimes just going through other books to look at examples or recent monthly or yearly compilations for any recent things that may have happened in geography. But again, I decided to make sure that for the introduction here, I mainly use definitions because I didn't have too much to use. For the body, again, what was being answered, a direct answer to that I would use. I tried to use maps in this. I tried to use diagrams. If I had, if there was a possibility to make a map or a diagram in a geography question, I would not leave it. So if this time there was this question on, so there were two questions in terms of physical geography, which I've just mentioned. I see that there were more questions. First was differentiate causes of landslides in the Himalayan region and Western Ghats. So the question was landslides. And if you have good content developed on landslides, which is a very normal question, comes in disaster management also, comes in GS1 also, then you won't have too much problem. This question will not take too much time, and then you can move on to next more challenging questions. To make sure you have good content on questions that are like easy, right? So this was an easy question relatively in geography. You just start with what? You just start with a basic introduction of landslides, or what you can do is, I had a certain data on landslides as well. So I just started with, say, GSI, according to GSI, 12.6% of the land area of India is prone to landslides. And I had this like very rigorously burnt into my head because I had prepared this and had written certain questions like this, right? So this is the introduction that you follow in terms of you can use certain data. Then I drew a diagram again of a map again of India. I circled basically this place, which was basically the Himalayas, and then I underlined or shaded this place, which was the Western Ghats. And then I wrote reasons for both here and here, I think. This is something that I did in one of my papers as well, and then I think later here also. Or sometimes you can just draw, say this is 1 and this is 2, and then you can write it later. So if you make a chota sa map side mein, and you think you can't write uske aaspas, to just mark 1, mark 2, and then write 1 ke niche iske reasons and 2 ke niche iske reasons yahan par. So this is something that you can do in terms of structuring as well. So differentiate causes of landslides in Himalayan region, Western Ghats, talk about both. And if it's talking about just causes, if this is only the question and it's a 10 marker, make sure that causes occupy a major part of your answer, but at the same time, don't just leave it there. To make it a slightly better answer, also talk about solutions, right? If only the causes are answered, it will be an incomplete answer if you only write about the causes, even if it's the only thing which is answered in the question. Little bit, at least half a page, write about certain solutions. Here you can mention again differences. So Western Ghats here and Himalayas here, and different approaches that can be followed. So I remember in the Himalayas, there was a separate committee called Deepak Chopra committee. So mention that here. Right? In the Western Ghats, there was this committee called Kasturi Rangan committee. So mention these names, they'll fetch you sort of extra, that it'll show you have some sort of knowledge about both these areas and how their problems are different. So talk about certain solutions in terms of mitigation, general guidelines, whatever you're saying, try to back something, back it with something, whether it's a committee, whether it's certain guidelines that you think are there. So NDMA guidelines, certain schemes by the government. So there's this landslide susceptibility mapping in the northeast. So talk about that with respect to the Himalayas. So these are certain things with respect to the question, demand of the question, you can do. Okay, so this was geography. Similarly, there was this question on IT industries this time around only. So IT industries, it was talking about socio-economic implications. Right? So although the question was about socio-economic implications, I drew after the introduction, I think I talked about the importance of the service industry and how the IT industry, service sector in India with respect to the global world, and how the IT industries are at the central focal point of it. Then I drew again a small map here, and I drew the IT industries. This is a bad map, but basically you understand, I just jotted down the IT industries within the map. That's it. Nothing else I talked about it. Then I moved towards the part of the question where it was asking about the socio-economic implications. So then I talked about, say, the implications in terms of migration, because it was socio-economic implications. Remember, keywords of the question, it was not just asking about economic implications. So socio-economic mean development of slums, development of certain industries, cluster of industries, development or issues of out-migration, in-migration, female sex ratio in the areas of out-migration, then basic lots of other things that, you know, I can't think of right now, but socioeconomic implications, make sure that you're answering what is being asked in the questions, right? So these are the two types of questions that can be answered in geography: physical geography and mineral or human geography.